Ready for a new story? Then let's hit the road. Life is full of doors that don't open when you knock on them. No less than those that swing open when you don't want them to at all. The Amber Chronicles. I noticed a strange phenomenon after the second day of school at the Slavic Church Seminary. Some kind of gentleman suddenly appeared after my first independent night trips into my personal worlds. It is located behind my right shoulder. It looks like the appearance of an ordinary person, but rather looks like an impoverished zombie. Some kind of dark green human form, such a tattered cut inscription, and old worn torn rags, probably once a military uniform of a soldier's uniform, peacefully swinging in ulcerated hands an ordinary axe with a sharpened blade that glinted in the glare of the occasional gas lamp light. Upon contact, both vocal and visual, he calls himself a guardian angel. To a direct question, "What do you finally need?" Stranger says, "I'm watching you for now," the scribbler replied. "Why are you watching me?" I asked uncomprehendingly, so that he doesn't run far. This gentleman replied with an unchanging grin on his terrible face, which was covered with scars from cuts. "What are you waiting for more?" Again, I asked a leading question. "I'm waiting for the morning sun to rise." "You'll find out for yourself soon," the guard said, smiling mysteriously through his rare rotten teeth, swinging his old axe. But this guy is not aggressive. He's strange. He's just standing there and watching me. Or something else invisible and incomprehensible. Maybe someone has come across what kind of Mr. Subject is this. Am I really that dangerous that they've assigned an angel to watch over me? Which is kind of funny on the one hand. Both on. Finally, this pathetic little man saw me as his guardian angel. It's happened. Things might get easier now between the two of us. So angels can take almost any form, but this man saw what I really am, what I look like. Old Hardware, that's my name, is an old piece of hardware in the unwritten ranks of disembodied entities. That is, another one of the old guard of angels, and now this person's guardian angel is assigned to watch and protect him. Oh, I've been tormented by this restless young man, and how much more I'm going to suffer. And why am I being punished like this? But the fact is that I really like to drink cheerful drinks, with whom you will fall in love and gain from these earthly people. So I gradually became addicted to the harmful habit of consuming heavenly nectar. I am an angel after all, and I can create something else right out of thin air if desired. The higher archangels found out about this unholy deed and assigned me to this little man. In addition, they condemned me to follow him in this stupid guise and protect him from the black forces of darkness. The first adventure near the swamp forest, the first rule, nothing is impossible. If you can't do something, don't think that no one else can. My skittish and stubborn mare disappeared somewhere again, gnawing off the thin rope with which I tied her to a post of a frozen tree, striving and probably wanting to become someone's tasty meat for a night dinner. In this dark, deserted, and gloomy forest, where we were now, having stopped for the night and rest. I am Agni, and the same angel overseer Hardware, from those very first days spent in the seminary. When I was an inexperienced novice, as my mentors later explained to me, I discovered the ability to see unusual vision, to see invisible entities that are inaccessible to ordinary people. The institution where I studied was quite unusual for the Slavic diocese of the Church. It recruited students from everywhere, from all the boundless lands of the Middle Woodlands with supernatural abilities. This seminary trained hunters for all evil spirits displeasing to God and vile, seducing weak, unstable lost souls of people, disembodied creatures climbing from the depths of hell. Having found out about my personal guardian and my secret gift, the tutors of the seminary began to teach me with a vengeance all the secret teachings of combat white magic, counteraction to black magic, and all the other wisdom of their craft. After a couple of years, my studies ended, and the masters blessed me, provided me with a set of necessary amulets, artifacts, and a personalized enchanted dagger in the shape of a holy crucifix. and sent me into life to help and serve ordinary people in the church, giving me easy tasks through their messengers and magic mail. Then everything, as I gained experience, more and more difficult and challenging. This is my alma mater. For several months now, in the remote town of Cravo, a satanic blood-sucking ghoul has been operating, subtly killing people and first conducting his black blasphemous rituals over them. The bodies of the unfortunate numerous victims were drained of blood. Organs were removed and covered with some kind of black ash, from which a strong smell of devilish sulfur could be felt. The entire population of the town, male and female, from young to old, was in fear and horror, trying to leave their homes less in the evening and even more at night. Reinforced by volunteers and driven by the promise of a large reward for their capture. The city guard ran off their feet, searching for this elusive, bloodthirsty ghoul, each time attacking a hot trail and another victim, again and again losing sight of him, like an old hound dog that cannot follow the trail of a forest hare. In the end, having surrendered from their impotence, the City Assembly of Cravo residents sent a plea for help, signed by the mayor of this town, to the Supreme Church hierarchs, those magistrates, and they to us, that is, to me. That's how we ended up in this wilderness, on the way to my difficult mission. After trampling and shivering in the autumn morning chill, near a long extinguished campfire, and shouting for my young and skittish filly to look and tidy up. I looked hopefully at my keeper, but Hardware just shook his head, expressively running his thumb over his throat. It's clear that the poor horse has become someone's dinner after all. Hey, what are we going to do if you don't say anything? I turned to my keeper for a hint, not understanding what to do next. But the silent Hardware was clearly in a bad mood, having spent the whole night with me in some cold forest, and not somewhere in a cheerful tavern or inn with food, drink, and warmth, silently shrugging his shoulders, showing with his whole appearance that you are in charge. You think about what to do, calmly tapping your hatchet on the trees, making some notches only understandable to him meanings. Yeah, he's a hell of a helper. I had to make do by myself, touching the amulet of a bracelet made of black overseas wood, worn on my right hand. I spoke to myself the module of the spider displacement conspiracy. A faint warmth wafted from the bracelet, showing me his work. Spider movement is a search for a trajectory along the lines of force of the world to move towards the goal. You need to focus on the target and trigger the activation module. In the future, the movement towards the goal will follow one of the optimal lines found. This is one of the most powerful slanders for automatically dealing with any situation. From the Hunter's textbook. Can you show me where the road is? I pleaded with my stubborn Hardware again, but he waved his hand vaguely towards some edge of the forest. He was definitely not in the mood, resenting me. Well, let's hope only for ourselves. Stopping in the direction indicated by the keeper, pushing through dense, leafless bushes, I soon came out onto a deserted road. The road or highway was completely lonely and empty, but suddenly there was a soft clatter of hooves, and a horse-drawn cart appeared on the road out of the void in the morning fog, with one man riding it. I quickly took out my silver seal from the pockets of my raincoat, which also gave me the right to demand and ask for any help and assistance from anyone. And holding the seal in my palm, I showed it to the carriage passing by me, so to speak. This guy nodded silently and reluctantly showed me a place in his cart. Of course, I'm not in the mood either. And what happened to you? What kind of fly bit you too? I asked myself a rhetorical question that did not need an answer, telling the sullen man the purpose of the journey that I needed to get into the womb. He frowned even more angry, not knowing who. Apparently, he needed to go in a completely different direction, closer to the side of his woman. It would be possible to talk about a drain funnel, but it was necessary to save personal strength for more important things than spending it on a simple village peasant. drain funnel forms a powerful energy drain. From the drain to the structure with excellent power and illegibility, you can throw a parasitic channel into the funnel, or a channel to someone, for example. The tail from the object search spell module. The funnel sucks in the dirty and evil energy of the object, draining everything very quickly and efficiently. All love spells, incantations, and spells, simple of course from a desktop textbook. It took me several long hours in a rough cart along the highway to the town, before we reached the solidly thick city gates at the entrance to Cravo. After saying goodbye to my sullen driver, before that I gave him 2 Pilates, small silver coins, in order to reward him after all. For some hard work and forced inconvenience, I went to the closed gate. There was a rope with a copper ring hanging on the gate. I pulled it several times. The lattice door on the gate at head height opened with a slight hitch, and the sleepy, wrinkled face of one of the guards at the entrance poked out. And who the hell are they talking about? The voice of the lazy guard and the bribe taker asked with displeasure. At the entrance to the city, it was required to pay an entrance fee. And some of it, as everywhere else, the guards appropriated a bottomless pocket for themselves. Thrusting my teeth into the guard's face, I ordered him to let me through the gate at once. "This is the moment, my dear sir," the guard fussed, twisting the handle of the heavy creaking gate mechanism. "Report to the mayor immediately that I have arrived." I barked heartily at the negligent guard, going inside the entrance courtyard. But how else should I treat them? "It will be done in a minute, your—" The guard did not have time to finish. 3 thugs fell out of the guardhouse amid the noise and uproar. The city guards with faces flushed with wine and excitement, probably playing a card game before, the healthiest of the trio, slowly waddling up to me with a threat, laying down a huge palm on the hilt of a 2-handed broadsword strapped to a side sling. "Is there a problem, sir?" Brazenly, without respect, the clothes I was wearing were quite modest and poor. A simple raincoat soaked from moisture and a modest leather hat, the big man turned to me. There were many options for how to act, but I chose the most correct one. Showing my seal again, the big guy stopped and stretched out on the hood, assuming a brave look and bearing. "Name, soldier?" I asked, sympathetically to the straightened guard. "Gordy," the guard replied, "well done. In the evening, you will come with me with your team. Report to the mayor and you will wait at his house, deciding to take him and other guards to help." I dropped a coin into a chest with a slot for collecting tolls, turned around and walked away, followed by the angry stares of the bewildered guards. Thinking to stretch my stiff bones and walk on foot, find a tavern or an inn. I needed a little rest before evening work. Walking along the main street, I came across a 2-story building with a dirty, crooked signed chicken. It's illegible further. Well, it seems to be a tavern and a lodging in one person. Going inside the tavern, I asked if there were any rooms available for standing, and the large woman who was sitting at the table after receiving an affirmative answer. I said that I would take a room for a few days and immediately paid off by pouring out a dozen copper Pilates from my purse. Having ordered food and drink to the room of the portly innkeeper, a drink in the sense of a jug of fresh cow's milk. For accelerated recovery, I lay down on the bed with pleasure stretching my tired loins, looking around the cramped room, not finding my usual companion. Probably he went for a walk as usual, scaring cats and dogs with his image apparently deciding to change my annoying company. He thoughtfully took my blade out of its sheath. It was a double-edged blade made of light meteorite steel with magical runes inscribed in the middle of the blade, made by an unknown blacksmith master. I asked the masters how many times they smoothly evaded the answer, or maybe they themselves were unaware of who this master was. The guard of the blade was wide and elongated, carved from obsidian along with a bone hilt, with a spherical pommel of the hilt decorated with a large faceted crystal of black terminal. This blade did not serve to protect or attack ordinary people. When the steel of the blade came into contact with the devilish essence, it absorbed it into itself like a sponge, taking its black soul essence inside, storing it inside and not releasing it anymore. If you looked closely with your free vision, you could see dark, voiceless shadows floating and writhing like swamp leeches, deep in the steel of the blade. There were already more than a dozen black magical souls on his account. Holding the blade in my hands, I unknowingly fell into a light and fast sleep, apparently unconsciously turning on the spell, colored dreams, because I had an unusual dream. Colored dreams, dreams on request, including the opportunity to get a good night's sleep. Wake up refreshed, order a sleep scenario, watch certain events in your life or other events. Get the necessary information. Become aware of yourself in a dream by controlling sleep. Object search to find the object of interest, but in a dream. Finding the root of an object is to find what gave rise to the object, its connections and causes. In a dream, I saw the reason and who was to blame for everything. He was a local resident of the city, quite influential, a merchant who lived in a rich two-story house. But now and in the future, he will hide in some poor wooden hut full of people. He caused this dark force, the demonic essence of the Wolfman, to materialize, while simultaneously inhabiting it himself and staying in a completely different place. The Wolfman, having done his dirty deed, killing another victim, disappeared, evaporating right into the air. I felt all this in a dream. The day was rolling towards late evening. When I woke up from sleep, I had to get to work, jumped out of bed, drank a cup of milk in one gulp, had a quick snack. Hardware had already appeared, standing by the window, holding his axe on his shoulder, focusing on the obsidian charm bracelet on my left arm. I cast several spells in a row: scent magic, object search, life control, air transmutation, and 28 lives. The slander, the smell of magic, refers to the search for magical demonic entities that change the reality of the world locally for situations when a person cannot understand the causes of events or doubts that this is someone's influence. The reason for this influence may not be a conscious negative impact. Life Control is a revitalizing magical combat spell that can be used on one dedicated organ of the body to give or take vital energy from enemies. Transmutation of air creates an opportunity to transform an object, a situation, through working with probabilities. Affects both the personal future and the future of the world around us, which means working in different frequency bands. 28 Lives is an enhanced version that restores and nourishes the silver life thread, builds a dense structure around it like armor, including additional channels. Well, that seems to be it. You can get ready to go. Throwing on my cloak, I turned to Hardwara. Well, let's show everyone that we don't eat our bread for nothing. The guard nodded silently, agreeing with me, and threateningly waved the axe over his head, showing that he was not actually against it. It was already night and dark outside, and the full yellow-faced moon had risen when we left the hospitable inn. I didn't need a torch and a kerosene stove with my extra vision dilated pupils. I saw in the dark no worse or maybe better domestic cats. The boulevard didn't need any light sources either. So we walked through the night streets, an indistinguishable pair, making our way to the burgomaster's house. My intuition told me that the Wolfman would also be out on his bloody hunt soon today. And today it was necessary to stop this madness of death dancing on the streets of the city. There were no passers-by on the streets at all. Everyone was hiding in their houses from horror, defending themselves with flimsy doors and flimsy walls of houses. I knew firsthand that a wolfman hungry for human blood could, if desired, demolish all obstacles and break into shelters, killing everyone indiscriminately, sowing death, blood, and horror in its path, his bloody harvest. With an active search, I easily found the burgomaster's house, on the square near the entrance to the burgomaster's house. People were crowding with burning torches. I could constantly hear the chatter of useless prayers addressed to God the Almighty. A bearded man in a monk's habit with a large silver cross on his chest conducted all this madness, the local priest father loudly intoning the words of prayers from the Psalter, worshipping parishioners in a hysterical trance. Stood aside a group of guards with prided arms, with swords and halberds, huge pistols at the ready, apparently fearing an unexpected attack from a mystical scourge. I approached him with questions. What kind of father is so strange, and why don't the parishioners pray in the city church? Gordy replied, embarrassed, and spoke in a voice trembling with fear. This is the city priest, Father Belislav, and they are praying because something desecrated our church the other day. The bell on the bell tower cracked and no longer rings properly. The altar with icons is painted with all sorts of diabolical inscriptions. The pulpit was burned by an incomprehensible fire that got there. When I heard this news, I thought about it. It seems that evil has gained strength here. It was so easy not to stop it. Rule 2, calculate the consequences, but not more than 2 steps ahead. The outcome of the game can change at any moment due to a change in the initial parameters of reality. The job no longer seemed so simple to me. The desecration of the city temple, it was already serious, but it was too late to retreat. Pulling myself together, I asked Gordy, "What are your pistols loaded with?" "I know what. Sprinkled with holy water with a powder charged with lead," Gordy replied. "Recharge it. Find some salt and charge it instead of lead. It should help a little." Well, holy water is also a thought. You need to tell your father and parishioners to hold holy water in their hands for protection. I replied proudly. Gordy nodded and went back to his guards, giving short commands and approaching his father, interrupting him and saying something in his ear. A couple of guards darted somewhere into the darkness, probably went in search of salt. As time passed, the tension in the air grew before our eyes. The frightened howling of yard dogs could be heard in the distance. As if anticipating something, echoes of fake church chants and howls of dark-inspired entities could be heard. The echo of spoiled bell ringing, the desecrated church came to life at midnight, breathing in the satanic energy of death. The priest, shuffling his feet in his casket, ran up to me as if seeking protection. "Hello, sir. I don't know what your name is." "I was told that you come on, Father. Time is running out. I'm Agni from the Brotherhood of Hunters," I said, interrupting him in mid-sentence. "Do you have holy water?" "No. Oh my God. All the holy water for prayer was stored in the temple, and now it's spoiled too. And it could only be prepared there with God's help." Father Belislav began to tell me, "Okay, find some salt, 2 bags, and put it in a thin line around the square without interruption. It can help protect parishioners from small demons and magical creatures." I gave practical advice to the Holy Father. I didn't use holy water much in my work, relying more on my amulets, artifacts, and salt, which is more common and effective. The music of the fake chant grew louder by the minute, and the devil's drums began to beat. As if tapping out the rhythm of St. Vitus's grave dance, when the bones and skeletons of the dead in cemeteries, inspired by the black power of evil, rise from ancient and fresh graves, as if dancing, twitching to an unknown rhythm like puppets. I glanced at my usually calm guardian, who was standing next to me, staring intently into the black distance, where the sound of infernal drums was growing more and more, probably ready, as always, for the upcoming battle with evil spirits. My magic amulet, a star ruby pendant framed in a disc of pure silver, hanging on my chest under my cloak, trembled slightly, reminding me of myself. I took it out from under my cloak and left it hanging on top of my clothes. I quickly cast another powerful spell, the Separation of Worlds, fortunately, while I had a free minute, activating the pendant for a dangerous situation. Separation of worlds, it is possible to single out what is necessary to be in life and reality, and what should not be present in it. The rest will fall into the third, but there may be side effects in the process of changes. The separation follows the lines of force of the world, and if used carelessly, can lead to very serious consequences. It is recommended to use it only in emergency situations or when absolutely necessary. Using this spell algorithm does not guarantee the price of the changes that occur. You can collect what you consider dear to yourself and forget something important, which will end up in the none zone and may or may not suffer. Usually, however, there are no serious consequences if you divide the world into all this and one thing that is not needed. When the slander algorithm is activated, the unnecessary is released from consciousness, as if by moving outside, away from oneself, after which you just need to switch your attention, for a while, to something else from the hunter's textbook. My initial plan was quite simple, to send a group of guards led by Gordia Head's Bait. When the wolfman shows himself, I come into the game, but the situation had already radically changed. It was no longer about the wolfman alone. The danger threatened all of us who were in the city. The prayers in our square subsided. The Holy Father sent his parishioners for salt. I shouted to Gordy that he would call the entire city guard here to the square on my behalf. Gordy nodded and disappeared for help. My pendant stopped shaking and burst into ruby sparks, illuminating everything with flashes of bright scarlet dawn. No worse than an ordinary torch. The harbingers of the demon of darkness, unrealistically large crows covered with shaggy dark fur, appeared and materialized in the sky, deafening the entire space with their vile calling, opening their beaks wide, flapping their wings. The people gasped in fright, having never seen such a sight, and rushed around in fear. Not knowing what to do, human howls, lamentations, and horror hung in the hot night air. I swiftly drew my blade, chanting my battle spell Harbingers, raising its blade to the sky. Harbingers are 7 of my materialized and inspired allies, viewing the probabilities of the future along your path. In the broadest sense of the word, the path of reality and defeating the distortion of reality, 2 allies of search and information, and 5 allies acting on the principle. I am a skating rink, sweeping away all obstacles in my path. In my vision, I saw the curly little defenseless angels of the parishioners, who were being tormented by beaks and claws, attacking them from above like a pack of rats. Furry harbingers. Immediately, 7 of my allies burst from the blade of my blade like white lightning, smashing and incinerating the winged evil spirits on the fly. I don't know what it looked like from the outside, but it was as if all the furry balls of flying creatures had caught fire by themselves, incinerated to ashes, and fell in an ash rain on the heads of the parishioners. On the ground, in the air, near us in the square, a small circle of hell has opened nearby, awakened by one of the wicked townspeople, erasing the fragile houses of the townspeople like splinters. Thunderous, belated volleys of pistol shots rang out. The guards arrived with Gordy, finishing off the surviving harbingers. Hardware chuckled contentedly and grinned at me with a crooked snarl of his teeth, showing that I was doing well, but that it wasn't like firing a cannon at sparrows, and it would be his turn someday, and probably soon enough. The concept of sanctum came to mind, which I just didn't know. Sanctum, the treaty, the Holy Land from the Latin, but everything later. There was a crackling, lightning bolt from the sky, and a thunderous voice spoke from the black skies, shaking the earth. Is that all you're capable of? I'm disappointed in you, my young boy. Clenching my teeth with anger, I called out to my guardian. We walked side by side together, forward towards an inescapable encounter with darkness. We walked side by side, 2 warriors of light who make up one whole in the world. The old axe of hardware was transformed into a flaming crescent moon, a ruby axe shining in sparks of fire. It was already unclear whether it was steel or something else. Vaguely, the huge shadows of the werewolves appeared out of the darkness, growling menacingly, baring their fangs with hanging foam. They broke out of the circle of local hell that had arisen on earth. breaking the walls of the nearest houses of the townspeople, and rushed towards us with huge leaps, shaking the poor earth. The square plunged into the abyss of fear and horror before the inexplicable power of evil. I plunged the blade into the ground, hoping for something. Well, I'm so young and inexperienced, I'm not a wizard, I'm just learning. The battle spell wave in the worlds, involuntarily uttered by me out of desperation, turned on by itself. A wave in the world is consonant with the work of the canyon spell, but it also acts outside of this branch of reality, if necessary. In the simplest case, it allows you to firmly sew something into the fabric of the universe. For example, a very blunt but effective application, it is possible to fix a certain signal on a material medium more tightly and for a long time. In general, a thing of incredible power, used in a broader sense, is very, very careful. But to remember that there is such a thing is from the hunter's textbook. Canyon is a pretty crushing, powerful thing. It is needed to modulate significant transformations in the world around us. When activating this spell, especially at first, it is better to close your eyes and imagine a steep mountain stone wall, 250 to 300 meters away, in front of you. This is the mirror of the canyon radiator. You seem to be pulled into the place of the operator. The signal bounces off a stone wall. This is a real object, passes back and goes to the surface of the sea, then skirting our world. The signal is phased so that it arrives at the same point by the time it ends and resonates with itself. You need to imagine yourself in the operator's place. It is necessary to imagine in the mind the object of influence and the purpose of transformation. Initiate the initial impulse of the impact. It will go to intensify and resonate. Your participation is the operator in the emitter center. It is not recommended to use it unless absolutely necessary. It can cause damage to energy bodies and entities if they are not prepared for such hard work. Consider that this spell has the inscription, "Don't get involved." He'll kill you, like on a transformer box. It can be used both for healing, tissue reconstruction, and for working with a situation or weather, which is also a situation. It is a powerful tool for restructuring the lines of force of reality, due to the effect of amplifying the magical signal from the hunter's desktop textbook. From the blade plunged into the ground, waves were born, like ripples on the water from a thrown stone, heaving up the earth, the stone paving stones of the square, the grass and bushes, only spreading towards the hounds of the demon, the messenger of hell. My powerful spell simply swept the unfortunate wolfman clean into another branch of reality, into another numerous universe, once created by gods and devils, cleansing this fragile human world of filth and evil spirits. The axe or axe of my guardian, having managed to cut in half several infernal creatures rushing towards us, stopped its deadly dance with the darkness, arguing with it in rage and bloodlust, probably well drunk on its nectar. After all this trouble, I noted, as if I myself would also like to skip a cup or two of drink, in case of survival here burning night. Congratulations, Hunter. You did it. A thunderous, caustic voice, full of anger and malice, rang out from somewhere in the sky. But now you and I are going to have a big game. My new task is long-laying. If you manage to complete it, you won this time, and I will leave this city alone forever. If not, then I will wipe this whole town into fine powder from the face of the earth, without a trace. Who are you, please? Show yourself, you beast. I exclaimed in a fit of anger. Ha ha ha, devilish laughter shook the night air. My name is Melchum, the voice added through mocking laughter. I've heard from textbooks that it's better for ordinary people not to know this at all. And he wasn't kidding when he said he could wipe out an entire city. Melchum is the highest demon among the hierarchy of darkness, the keeper of the treasures of the princes of hell. Are you ready to play again? Because the whole city is at stake. The demon asked the king of darkness, Rule 3, there is no fate. You create your own way, and only myself. And one more thing, the guidance of the masters of the seminary to me on the path to life. A reminder how to act in certain situations. Never make obvious decisions. Never make irreparable mistakes. Never pursue only one goal. Always consider the possibilities. Always evaluate your opponent correctly. Always consider the consequences. I replied without hesitation that I was ready, glancing sideways at my faithful guardian, who stood inseparably by my side in moments of danger. "Remember Sanctum," growled the eerie, unearthly voice of the devil's messenger. Something appeared out of the night air, a strange arch of pulsating light glowing from within, invitingly emitting a blue-white light. "Enter it," the demon's harsh voice commanded, brooking no objections. And I went in there. Well, where is this young sucker going? My angelic friend, couldn't we have done something else? Get out of this town as soon as possible. Hardware lamented to an inexperienced protege, desperately waving his arms to resist the force pulling the guardian into the depths of the magical portal. I woke up in total darkness, leaning my back against the icy wall of a room. It was cold, terribly cold, like in a frosty, frozen cellar, and I was a little glad that I hadn't taken off my raincoat in the heat of the fight in the square, wrapping myself in it and buttoning myself up. I need to remember and understand where I found myself when I entered this ominous arch. It looked like a huge graveyard, an underground crypt. Turning on my vision, I looked around in more detail. The guard was standing next to me and looking at me reproachfully, as if asking where you led us, lowering the axe to the ground as if exhausted. At least he wasn't cold. I was a little mistaken. It was the space of a huge cave, the uneven stone walls of which were covered with icy frost and frost. The huge body of the cave was meandering out of sight, quarries, I guessed it. It's clear where we were thrown, near Cravo, I heard. There were abandoned underground quarries where they used to mine building stone. Okay, don't sulk, something happened. I apologetically turned to Hardwara. Better help me get out of this place. I uttered the slang climate control, the innate human ability to automatically regulate body temperature, chattering my teeth from the dead cold, trying to keep warm. Come on, help me, I asked Hardwara, closing his eyes, trying to focus on an imaginary object in his mind. Saying the spell, take from the gap space, or a similar spell corridor. Attunement to a specific place not here in this reality. Applicability is limited by personal power. Take from the gap, pulling out information or objects. The same thing is similar. It takes a lot of perseverance to get the effect. A quick effect is probably not possible for most magicians, but the basic settings of the algorithm and the state of magic are still there. From the textbook, I needed a simple source of heat and light, an ordinary torch. Imagining it in great detail, a gnarled wooden pine shaft soaked in resinous hemp. I slowly stretched out my hand towards Hardwara, trying to feel an imaginary torch. My fingers came across something rounded. It turned out that the hand was holding the very torch that I had imagined. Hardware stretched out an unusual axe and touched the blade to the tarry top of the torch. The torch burst into flames, sparks, and black smoke from burning resin. Lit up, illuminating the uneven light of the cave space, the chipped walls. Well, it's easier now. It's much warmer and brighter. It's not so gloomy when the fire is shining. Having warmed up from the actions, I began to think about the situation. It was clear that I had to get out of here to the top before I turned into a piece of frozen meat. The only question was, the quarries I knew stretched like a vast web of underground passages, in which it was no wonder to get lost. I had to use heavy artillery again and use magic spells. The following two spells are essentially understandable to those who have read Zelazny. We are talking about different ways of influencing reality through the multivariance of chaos. Air, or the order of the earth, as well as amber. The prefix evacuation means we're getting out of here, and not necessarily literally. The point is that we need to quickly find a way out of an unpleasant situation that we generally do not need. This is different from changing the situation for the better. If we still need it, because making your feet and staying inside the situation are different. In the Amber version, it is about finding existing ways of peaceful order that move us to a more orderly state. The reality of the world than the current one. In a new place, we will be more stable, massive, and unshakable. Nevertheless, we will have fewer opportunities for action, but less chance of getting into a new mess. In the Chaos variant, we are talking about finding ways to rattle invariance. Strange situations, shifting us into a completely chaotic state in relation to the current one. This will probably lead to greater mobility, but it requires internal stability to replace the lost external stability, as well as readiness for change and anomalies. These spells may not be related to physical movement, but only to an attempt to escape from a certain situation. However, it is recommended to use them very extremely and very carefully. In principle, sequential use is possible. Their effect can be projected onto the object, as by the way with most slanders, but then the evacuation zone is your current position, and you need to understand in advance how the object of influence is shifted relative to it. Evacuation of Amber seeks ways out of the situation, including physical routes of movement through the lines of force of the world. Evacuation of Chaos seeks a way out through the destruction of order, a shift in the air, chaos. The next few parts of the spell work with external objects and change people as a rule, and change their reaction to you or to the situation. It should be understood that for many, their effect may not be strong enough, and that you can interfere with their work with your consciousness by thinking backwards. Theoretically, taking into account the model of the world and the reality of the reflections of chaos, that is, the possibility of parallel branches, both spells can be used to move to another branch of reality, but in practice there are difficulties with this. And this remark is rather intended to note that this should be avoided in order to avoid unnecessary problems on your head. From the Hunter's Textbook. Go to the next story. See you.